Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Thank you very much. So I've been waiting for this meeting for 20 years, actually. And it's not that everything's 100% understood or known, but I think we've made a lot of strides. I wish it was done a long time ago. Today, we're delighted to be joined by America's top medical and public health professionals as we announce historic steps to confront the crisis of autism. Horrible, horrible crisis. I want to thank the man who brought this issue to the forefront of American politics along with me. And we actually met in my office, is it like 20 years ago, Bobby? It's probably 20 years ago in New York. I was a developer, as you probably heard, and I always had very strong feelings about autism and how it happened and where it came from. And he and I don't know, the word got out, and I wouldn't say that people were very understanding of where we were, but it's turning out that we understood a lot more than a lot of people who studied it, we think. And I say we think because I don't think they were really letting the public know what they knew. Thanks as well to the director of the National Institute of Health, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, FDA Commissioner, Dr. Marty McCary. These are great people. Administrator of the Centers for Medicine and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, and Acting Assistant Secretary of HHS, Dr. Dorothy Fink. So thank you all. Thank you, Dorothy, very much. The meteoric rise in autism is among the most alarming public health developments in history. There's never been anything like this. Just a few decades ago, 1 in 10,000 children had autism. So that's not a long time, and I've always heard, they say a few, but I think it's a lot less time than that. It used to be 1 in 20,000, then 1 in 10,000, and I would say that's probably 18 years ago. And now it's 1 in 31, but in some areas it's much worse than that, if you can believe it, 1 in 31. And I gave numbers yesterday. For boys, it's 1 in 12. I was told that's in California where they have for some reason, a more severe problem. But whether it's 1 in 12 or 1 in 31, can you imagine? That's down from 1 in 20,000, then 1 in 10,000. And now we're at the level of 1 in 12 in some cases for boys. 1 in 31 overall.
Welcome back to Whistleblower Wednesday. The Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube and our X-Spaces simulcast. Well, confronting the autism crisis and the idiocy of the elite in this country is paramount, as you just heard from President Trump there. And as an autism dad, I am very grateful to President Trump and Secretary Kennedy for taking bold action to address the autism crisis in this country. My youngest son was born 21 years ago yesterday. And he is an autistic young man now. So I don't know for sure what has caused the astronomical increase in autism in our children, especially our boys like my youngest son. But I do know the scientific and medical capabilities of the government that my tax dollars pay for were not addressing the challenge in any meaningful way until this administration took office. As I've analyzed what I heard in the Tylenol press conference, that's what I'm calling it, my concerns were confirmed. We have known about the Tylenol concerns on fetal development for a long time, but parents have never been fully informed of the risks in a meaningful, systematic way. That is inexcusable. And our community, has a responsibility to maintain our skepticism and push for total informed consent in every case of every concern, whether it's related to autism or not. A top leader in our community of autism parents is my guest today to help us work through some of the issues that we heard about in the press conference and other issues that weren't talked about yet. Tracy Slepcevic is a best-selling author of Warrior Mom, A Mother's Journey in Healing Her Son with Autism. She's president and founder of Autism Health and the Autism Health Summit. She's a certified integrative health practitioner. And this one I really like, a U.S. Air Force veteran, the founder of Pur Health, LLC, and an autism mom. Tracy, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and thank you for your hard work. Not all of us have been able to dedicate the effort and time that you have, so we rely on you. And I apologize if I sound a little emotional, but this is an emotional issue, and it should be. It should be. What's really one of the things before we dive into the Tylenol specific stuff in the show here, Tracy, is why, in all of your research and investigation, have you come up with a reason as to why the government hasn't taken a really hard look and publicized it so we're all informed about what this autism crisis, how it has come about at all?
Well, don't you know it's all genetic? Oh, I'm just kidding. That's a big bought out hoax. Big Pharma doesn't make money off of, it being biological or, a regression from an environmental factor.
Yeah.
But I'm super excited, and I'm sure you are too, being an autism dad, that, us parents who have been speaking out for years, finally, this is our moment. And, all those years of, the whispers, the talks, she's an anti-vaxxer, she's a conspiracy theorist. And, probably these days, my own son is probably saying it because he's, been brainwashed and manipulated when he was in high school. And, he's on the liberal side. I mean, he always tells me he loves me, but we definitely have different views, and it really saddens me. But it's a beautiful thing what's coming out. I'm grateful, forever grateful to Trump for addressing it, 100% to Secretary Kennedy for all his sacrifices. I'm here to say firsthand, as a mom, he never wanted to step into this arena. He knew what it was going to cost him, but he took that risk after he learned, what all these different things that were going on that they were suppressing, and he couldn't leave it alone with all good consciousness. And I'm truly grateful to him every single day. He is a personal friend of mine, and God bless him. He is very grounded in what he does. And he reads the science. He really actually takes the time to read the science. Now, if you look up, there's over 1,000 published studies on the dangers of acetaminophen. It is the #1 cause of liver failure. Do people know this? Absolutely not. You don't. Do they make money off of you knowing that it could cause liver failure, that it opens up the blood-brain barrier? So, when your pediatrician tells you after you've given them a round of vaccines loaded with aluminum and mercury and all kinds of neurotoxins that, hey, by the way, just rotate Tylenol, Motrin, and maybe before you come in for those vaccines, you can give them a shot of Tylenol as well. And then it depletes glutathione levels. So your master antioxidant in your body, your body's ability to fight off infections, virus, like the viruses that are shoved into you, or the fact that people don't know that you can actually get the virus from the vaccine. My son got measles from his measles vaccine. But all these things are coming to light. Us parents, are so happy that we finally have our day, our moment in time where the truth is finally coming out.
Yeah, it's almost, you could hear a collective sigh of relief when we watched the press conference there, because we knew it was, and we were anticipating it. Look, I supported Mr. Kennedy in almost everything, and was thrilled to see that Charlie Kirk was able to bring him and President Trump together to get him into this administration, because nobody else could do this. Nobody else could do it. When you wrote your book, why did you write the book overall? Was it like a catharsis for you personally, since you were experiencing being an autism mom, or a little bit of that plus, hey, we've got to get the word out? And what did you want parents to take from that?
So when I decided to write my book, it was the beginning of COVID, and I saw what was happening. You and I have been on this journey for a while now. So battling with doctors and scientists and researchers and the government and big pharma all these years, and never anybody giving us the time of day. Number one, the first reason that I wrote this book was because when my son was diagnosed with autism, I felt very lost. I had no direction. I didn't know what to do, and nobody wrote a guidebook. So for many years, I wanted to tell my story because my story was very inspiring. In 2008, when my son was diagnosed with autism, within a year, my husband wound up on the front page of the LA Times in a smear campaign because he fights against big insurance. And we lost our home, his business of 20 years. But I'll tell you, I did everything I could to make sure that my son received all the treatments that he needed. I negotiated, I bartered. I'm like, listen, you want me to scrub your toilets? I'll do whatever it takes. I sold everything that I owned. If I could pick it up and put it on eBay, it was gone. And I short sold my house in the end to make sure I could take my kid to the Ukraine for stem cell therapy. So for people to come to me over the years, because I have been coaching parents for many years, and say, well, it's so expensive and I don't know if I can afford it. I'm the wrong person to say that to. Because if you create a clear intention of what it is that you choose to create in your life or your child's life, you can move mountains, one pebble at a time, maybe, but you can move mountains. And I made that decision the day that Noah was diagnosed with autism, and my naturopath said, hey, Noah will be okay. And I felt like God was speaking to me, like he sent me an angel in that very moment, that I needed somebody to tell me it was going to be okay. And that is when my mission began. So I always wanted to tell my story, and I saw them rolling out a COVID vaccine. So in 2021, I got in front of my computer and I just started typing. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what was going to become of it, how I was going to get it out there. I mean, how do you write a book? How do you publish a book? I just knew that people and parents needed this information. So it's a little bit of an inspiring story, and, a little bit of a guidebook, and then also like the biomedical protocol. And back then it was like a very basic protocol. There's so many different things now that you can do to treat those underlying conditions. But I wanted parents to have that as a tool, no matter what the cost was. And, so they didn't feel alone anymore. And the beautiful thing about it is, with my organization, we brought together a community, and, where parents and caregivers and even practitioners can come together, and that are like-minded. And so they don't have to feel alone, and they can get their questions answered.
Yes, that's one of the reasons I wanted to thank you for that. I mean, our son was born in 2004, and we really didn't have a good diagnosis until he was 9. But we had all these other diagnoses and things along the way, and it was like walking in the dark and sticking your foot out in front of you. Really, because even though there were organizations around, we really didn't know what was going on. It was just wild. It's good to have for parents to have something like your book. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll see another clip from the president talking specifically about acetaminophen in that press conference. One more snippet from that, and we'll continue our conversation with Tracy, author of Warrior Mom. It's amazing. You should go check it out. I'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
So, since 2000, autism rates have surged by much more than 400%. Instead of attacking those who ask questions, everyone should be grateful for those who are trying to get the answers to this complex situation. And the first day all of these great doctors behind me were there, I told them, this is what we have to find out. Because when you go from 20,000 to 10,000, and then you go to 12, you know there's something artificial. They're taking something. And by the way, I think I can say that there are certain groups of people that don't take vaccines and don't take any pills that have no autism. That have no autism. Does that tell you something? That's currently, is that a correct statement, by the way?
There are some studies that suggest that, yeah, with the Amish, for example.
The Amish, yeah, virtually. I heard none. See, Bobby wants to be very careful with what he says, and he should, but I'm not so careful with what I say. But you have certain groups. The Amish, as an example, they have essentially no autism. First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol during pregnancy, can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube, and we're live on our X Spaces simulcast, and we are back with our guest, the author of Warrior Mom, Tracy Slepcevic. Tracy, when the president's talking about those numbers there, you are an expert in this area. I mean, 1 in 12 boys in California, as opposed to 1 in 30,000 in 20. I don't remember how many decades back that number was, but explain to people real quick how dramatic that is.
Well, that's pretty dramatic. And I could tell you, with the rise of vaccines, came the rise of autism. And after the 1986 Vaccine Act, which freed the vaccine manufacturers, any doctors, nurses administering it, of any liability to vaccine injury, then they could do whatever they wanted. So then the childhood vaccine schedule tripled. And as soon as it did, 1 in 10,000 went to 1 in 1,000, almost overnight. So that was from, let's see, 1986 to 1989. I think they tripled the schedule. And go back. So Kennedy also did a video, and I did a Substack on it, I think yesterday. So if you go to my Substack, Autism Warrior Mom, you will see, and I pulled up all the studies, all the information, all the charts, everything. I did my research, I did my homework. We are not just stupid parents. And in his video, he shows in history that prior to a vaccine being rolled out for a certain disease or virus, the actual rate of that disease started to, drop significantly way before the vaccine was ever rolled out. So polio, they were starting to clean up the waters. You had indoor plumbing, people, they were more strict with food and sanitary when it comes to food, all those different things. So, think your local plumber instead of thinking your vaccine manufacturers, because the first month that the polio vaccine ever, rolled out, many people got polio, many people died, and over 200 were hospitalized. And it also contained SV40, which is semivirus 40. It is a carcinogenic. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's cancer causing. And so who's to say how many people got cancer from that rollout? And within 30 days, it was pulled. So
yeah, I mean, at least we had a system then that would recognize it, as opposed to what we have now, like the COVID adverse reactions. I don't think anything significant's been done, even to this day, to correct that. It should have been taken off the market very quickly too. The acetaminophen. My wife said immediately. She said, "Rob, I don't know that I believed this when she saw the press conference, because I didn't take Tylenol when I was pregnant with William." And I said, "Okay, yeah, but you've seen I have my shot record from when I was a baby. I was a military baby, and we have Williams, my sons, and it is dramatic. The dosages, the numbers is tenfold greater between what I had by the time I was 18 months old and what he had." And I'm not a scientist or a medical expert, but something's not right if this autism rate's going up at the same time. It's at least correlated.
Absolutely. And the issue is not just acetaminophen. So you have, these kids are predisposed to pregenetics like MTHFR, mitochondrial disorder, many different autoimmune disorders that predispose them to vaccine injury or injury by environmental toxin. And acetaminophen is one of those. I have a woman on my board. She has 4 children with autism. Her oldest one almost died from the MMR. Her second one, she gave very little vaccines to, so he has a very mild form of autism. And then her twins, she never vaccinated. But while she was pregnant, she was told to take Tylenol daily because she had preeclampsia, and they are the worst of all 4 of them. So it is shown in studies. People just don't read those studies. Those studies are pushed down. They want to bring up the ones that that make the pharmaceutical companies look good. But first and foremost, it's a number of things. We have glyphosate. It is crazy. You've got preservatives in foods, food dyes, all kinds of stuff. And then you have heavy metal toxicity from vaccines. And, the reason why boys are more susceptible is because, girls have different hormones than boys, and we have one that actually helps protect our brain. And so typically boys are going to be more susceptible. And what we want to do, and this is my life's work, is to really find solutions. I don't want to wallow on, or keep reliving the past. I don't want my parents to keep reliving the past. I want to give them answers. I want to give them, different treatments and therapies and solutions for these kids. I want things to be covered by insurance. The hundreds of thousands of dollars that parents are spending on alternative treatments or treatments that are approved by the FDA but not for autism. That would make a huge difference in the autism community and for families.
Yeah, absolutely right. We've got a live audience, and I take questions from there. We do have a question over there, so I'm going to go ahead and take that question before we get to the next break. Drax is our host. Go ahead, Drax. Get that question.
Hey, I'm going short and sweet, nice and neat. Keep it on topic for the Colonel and his guest. Go ahead, Matt.
Thanks for the mic. Tracy, I was wondering what, if you wouldn't mind, what are some of those solutions you mentioned a moment ago, because that's your life's work. So what are some of those solutions you found for people with autism?
So first and foremost, the gut. The gut is your second brain, and it's host to your immune system and your neurotransmitters like your serotonin, your dopamine, your GABA. So if your gut is messed up, if it's inflamed, which for the most part, a lot of these kids have inflamed guts, then it's going to directly, via the nervous system, it's going to directly impact the brain and cause inflammation on the brain. So what we want to do is we want to clean out the gut. We want to get rid of inflammatory foods like gluten, dairy, and soy. We also want to get rid of sugar because sugar is major inflammatory. And if you have yeast, and a lot of these kids do, especially if they were an antibiotic baby or an ear infection baby like my son, then, yeast is going to compete with the body's ability to absorb proteins and vitamins and nutrients because the yeast wants to feed on it. In sugar is like major food for yeast. So when you start to clean out the gut, clear out the gut, do all these things, then you start to see life, color come back into their skin. Some of them, my son started talking again after I put him on a strict, and that was just diet. I did have to do some supplementation because he was very deficient in a lot of vitamins, and unfortunately we had to do that via IV. And then there's hyperbaric oxygen therapy that we did, stem cell therapy. You can do umbilical cord stem cell therapy right here in the United States. I work with, a great provider. Plasmalogens, we have teamed up with Dr. Goodnow Enterprises and their plasmalogen supplementation to help repair the myelin in the brain. The myelin is the protective coating over the nerves in the brain. So through oxidative stress, it starts to, deplete, and then it creates that white matter in the brain. But these plasmalogens help, repair, the myelin in the brain so that you can get better functionality out of these individuals with neurodegenerative disorders, and it's not just autism. So there's so many different things out there. There's MERT therapy. I could, if they're non-speaking, doing the Speller's method is a wonderful option to untrap, them from their own brains, because, speech is a motor skill. And if the motor cortex is damaged in any way, and a lot of these kids have that issue, then they're not going to be able to take that message from the brain to the mouth as where they can verbalize it. But they have those words. They're just kind of trapped up in their head. The telepathy tapes are great. You can listen to those and kind of see how these non-speakers are thriving. But there's so many things out there for in regards to treatments and therapies, and there's so much more to come. I'm still learning after all these years. I've been on the biomedical bandwagon for over 17 years, and my son is 20. So I'm excited about what's to come. I'm excited about partnering with whomever has the best out there, and I'll do my research to make sure that it's the safest method for these kids.
Yeah. Do you, is Children's Health Defense their resources? Are those good resources for parents that need to go somewhere and start getting answers when they don't have a trusted physician or medical provider handy?
Absolutely. So we partner with Children's Health Defense. They actually write a lot of articles. several almost a day. Dr. Marcola is one of their big authors for their articles. And so you can just go to their website, childrenshealthdefense.org. You can go in the little search engine. If you could type in the word autism or acetaminophen or whatever, you want to relate it to, and I'm certain there's multiple articles on it. But no, I love it because it's information, and they keep getting that information out there, and it's a great avenue.
Yeah, I use it myself. We got to take another break, Tracy. But when we come back, we'll see a clip, and you'll see the reason why I put the idiot elite in the title of this show. But I also want to talk about the drug that was talked about by the Secretary Kennedy and President Trump in that press conference. I had never heard of it, and I'm 99.9% sure that you have some information on it that parents need to know. I'll be right back with my guest, the author of Warrior Mom, an autism mom. You need to pay attention.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Kind of drug. It has its uses, but be aware of when it's appropriate to use it, when it's not, and be judicious. That was what we were saying. I think the key thing here is it's something called Trump derangement syndrome, right? Yeah. So you had President Trump. I remember in 2020, President Trump said we should open schools. You remember that?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, all these groups that were before he said that in favor of opening schools somehow all of a sudden changed their mind in contradiction to what the scientific evidence was saying and said we should close schools. There's something very odd about how some people react to what President Trump said is a more charismatic version of what I just said. Right? He said, "Don't take it unless you need to take it." Unless you really need it. That's the sum and substance of what he said, and that's actually wise advice. If you're pregnant women, think carefully about whether you should take it, given this evidence. I mean, I don't want 5 years from now, after the scientific debate's been resolved, and maybe it turns out that it is actually directly linked to autism. For years of people taking it, thinking that we don't know, when you could just say now, do prudent medicine, take it only if you really need it.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday here on Worldview Tube, and our X-Spaces simulcast. My guest is an autism mom, Tracy Slepcevic. She's an expert in this, has written a book about her experiences and what has worked for her in helping her son learn to not just live with autism, but find remedies for all the different things that autistic kids end up being afflicted with, and how to be a family with this situation and everything. And Tracy, the Glenn Beck and I think that was Dr. Bhattacharya were discussing the crazy responses, of the left, and he used the school closing example in COVID. But really, what was going on is they got on the media like CNN and said, "No, there's nothing wrong with it. Take as much as you want." After this very well thought out presentation chooses to highlight the facts and lay it out there so people can have informed consent. They're just nuts.
I have to agree. So when they rolled all this stuff out, people don't know what to do with that information. The left just wants to take and spin it into their own narrative. Luca Voren is folinic acid. It is the active form of folate. Let's just say most of these individuals with autism have folate deficiencies. They have the MTHFR gene, which is a genetic mutation. Which inhibits the body's ability to detox. So you don't methylate properly, you don't detox properly. So let's just take the individual who has MTHFR versus the other kid who doesn't. The chances of the one regressing into a state of autism after a set of vaccines versus the other is more likely if they have those pre-genetics. So is there a genetic factor? Yeah, there's a genetic factor. There's pre-genetics. There's we all have a pre-genetic disposition of some sort, but it's going to be some sort of environmental factor that triggers that.
Yeah.
So leucovorin, so a lot of these kids individuals, I'm just going to say individuals, produce antibodies that prevent folate from entering into the brain. And our body, our brains need folate, for functionality. And so leucovorin is able to apparently bypass those antibodies to actually get into the brain. But there are other things. It's not like leucovorin it's not a cure. So it's a tool for the toolbox. So people need to forget. We're not stating at all that there is a cure for autism. I'm not trying to change, these kids as, when I put healing, a mother's journey and healing her son with autism, everyone thought I was saying changed or cured. And my son warned me. He warned me before my book went out, and I'm like, no, hon. I'm like, it's healing. I heal, I address underlying conditions to heal your body so you can function. And no, he was 100% spot on. Absolutely. But leucovorin is a tool for the toolbox, and has it made, significant changes in a lot of these individuals on the spectrum? Yeah, a lot of them, it's brought back speech and certain functionalities that they didn't have before. But there's also L-methylfolate, there's also methylated B12, there's other forms that you can try prior to going on leucovorin. But is it another tool? Yes, it is. It's another tool.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Why I showed the idiocy of the elite piece, because this leucovorin, I wasn't familiar with it before the press conference. To be honest with you, I don't want parents going out there from the other political persuasion and going, "Oh, bad, Trump and Kennedy talked about it." So I'm glad you're aware of it and have an understanding of how this stuff works, because if there's something out there, believe me, I would have tried anything. If I thought it was not going to harm my child, I would have tried anything to try to help him.
And I wrote a Substack article on leucovorin, the benefits of leucovorin for autism, I don't know, like 6 or 7 months ago. So I have known, the benefits, but I also know that it's, if you don't have some sort of, cerebral folate deficiency, then, or your body has these antibodies, which we call FRAA, then, it might not do anything for you. But, I always say, start off with the more natural forms. Start off with an L-methylfolate or, methylated B12. I've been taking methylated B12 because I have, the MTHFR gene. So, and I typically would give it to my kid, but my kid doesn't take anything that I give him anymore. He's an adult. He knows better. Yeah. So, it's, that's just one more thing. But I always say, if you want updated information on autism, my Substack is a great way to go, Autism Warrior Mom, because it's really hard when you write a book, a few years later, it's kind of outdated what you just wrote, especially if writing about the latest and greatest in treatments and therapies. So I'm like, I needed to find an avenue where I can just, you know, write articles, and I like to write. So, so parents can have the most updated information. So I always say, you know, you could check out that, or I put the ones that don't use the word vaccine on my blog under autismhealth.com. I know, can't put the word vaccine on your website, or Google will just push it down.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Well, I'll probably I lost my Google or my YouTube show channel 3.5 years ago because I was talking about elections and vaccines. And they came back last week. I'll probably lose it again now, but I'm going to keep speaking out and getting people like you on to talk about this stuff because look, my wife and we've been through this. We know what it's like to not have access to hardly any information. I want people to have too much information. Have a menu of things. How do you get leucovorin? Is one of the questions in my mind. How does a parent go about talking to their doctors? I'm assuming it's a prescription drug and those kind of things.
So Western medicine is probably just, you know, going nuts over this. But if you find a good functional medicine doctor or integrative alternative, whatever you want to call it, that treats kids with autism or the underlying conditions associated with autism, that is the best way to go because it's prescription only. So you do have to get it from a prescription. Not all doctors will say yes. So I always say if you find a doctor that, and if they're well knowledgeable, then they will know that if it's the best course of action or not. And they'll do what's, you know, a lot of these doctors that I personally know will do what's in the best interest of the child.
Yeah. What about the risks? Are there risks associated with this drug that folks need to know about that you're aware of?
So I was told that, you know, the main contraindication to it is there might be some hyperactivity, that they might be a little spastic. So in that case, I would guess, and I'm not a doctor, I would guess that they would lower the dosage or they would take them off it completely. But typically they would start with probably lowering the dosage. And if it continues, then they would probably take them off of it because maybe that medication's not the best medication for them.
Yeah, yeah, that's not unusual for kids with these types of conditions to get on a medication, and it has. I kind of chuckled when you said that because when you have a child that's been diagnosed with ADHD and ADD and hyperactivity and all kind of sensory integration syndrome, the last thing you want to do is give them a medicine that exacerbates that.
Right. And unfortunately, you know, these kids are immunocompromised. A lot of them have PANS. And then it doesn't take much to trigger those behaviors. So it could be like one thing could trigger another. That's why finding somebody, Dr. Richard Fry is the one who really is one of the leading doctors in regards to leucovorin. I spoke with him. We were both on the research panel last week at the Autism Roundtable in DC, and he spoke about leucovorin. I spoke about diet, plasmalogens, and stem cell therapy. So it's, the information's out there. It's coming out there. I believe that Kennedy will do a deep dive into what actually works best for these kids. What can we get, FDA approved, and just push some of these things along, because before, leucovorin was actually used for chemo patients that had, for them to recover from chemotherapy that had a full deficiency. So it's, I don't know.
It makes sense. I mean, a lot of times these medications are used for something else, and we find that they could be useful for other things. Unfortunately, we got to take another commercial break. But when we come back, I do want to talk about vaccines, Tracy, because you are very well versed in the vaccine issue, and I think it's important to keep getting the truth out and facts out. So we'll dive into that a little bit more, and we'll talk with Tracy about some of her other efforts, like the conferences that she does and those kind of things. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
And medical health experts has released an important statement on pregnancy and pain medication. It's part of a study in the British scientific journal Nature. And here's what it does. It cautions pregnant women about using acetaminophen, and that is the active ingredient in Tylenol and many other medications that so many of us use to relieve pain or fever. CBC Health and Science reporter Christine Birak has the details.
The statement is backed by nearly 100 scientists and doctors from around the world. They insist a higher level of caution is needed when pregnant people use fever and pain meds that contain acetaminophen, including Tylenol. The authors don't have any new evidence showing the drug harms a developing fetus, but their statement does say a growing body of experimental and epidemiological research suggests that prenatal exposure to acetaminophen might alter fetal development, which could in turn increase the risks of certain neurodevelopmental, reproductive, and urogenital disorders.
Like autism, folks. Welcome back to Whistleblower Wednesday here on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast on the Rob Maness Show. My guest today is an autism mom herself, author of Warrior Moms and founder of the Autism Health Summit and those kind of things. Tracy Slepcevic. Tracy, I had to show that because that was from October 2020, so exactly 5 years ago this month. The information's been out there, but I don't think that our systems were adequately publicizing it. I just don't.
Of course not. Why would we see a news clip like that would say that they're dangerous to acetaminophen? Why would we expose the over 1,000 studies that are published on the dangers of acetaminophen? What people really don't know and understand is that, I'm going to say it again, it is the number one cause of liver failure, not alcoholism, not anything else, not Motrin, because, they actually tied, everyone's heard that Motrin, and it can. Motrin is, over a long term, is not good, but, can mess up the gut and in turn, mess up the liver, but nobody ever hears about acetaminophen. It's very much protected. Yeah. But it is the number one cause of liver failure.
It's amazing. I actually don't take Tylenol very often at all anymore. I think I've had it once in the last 3 or 4 years. The vaccines and the misinformation, the disinformation programs, the propaganda programs. How do we approach that these days? Because it's part of what's called 5th generation warfare on the American people that General Flynn and Boone Cutler wrote about in their Citizens Handbook, got a guide to 5th generation warfare. It's a psychological warfare, a narrative based warfare. Influence operation is another phrase for it, and it's backed by the biggest money and the biggest government entities in the world. And here we are, we're making headway. We're actually making some progress into putting a dent into that propaganda and everything. But I still get the, man, you're anti-vax. I'm not anti-vax. I've had vaccines all my life. I just want my
If you
kids
were in the
and
military, you
grandkids
have your
not to, I just don't
hefty
want them
dose.
to be, I don't want them to have stuff put in their bodies that shouldn't be in their bodies, you know?
Right. And I love how Trump and Kennedy put it as to where, they want to remove the neurotoxins. Granted, there are some other very toxic ingredients in vaccines, so it isn't just the heavy metals. But you are absolutely right that they do, it's the whole fear mongering thing. They create this fear. Usually, let's start with the pandemic. They push out a pandemic, they create a fear, and then people, out of fear are going to run and get a vaccine and a booster, even though people are dropping dead. I even had this discussion with my own son. He's like, well, my friends got it, and why can't I get it? And I'm like, because you could die from it. And let's talk about your friends, all your friends who got the vaccine and got COVID, but you've never gotten the vaccine and you've never gotten COVID. I took you for IV immune boosters, so we could boost your immune system to protect your body's natural ability to fight off infection or any viruses. And that worked way better than going out and getting something that actually gives you the virus. Because based on results, most people who got it got COVID. So, and you're right. And you mentioned one of my most favorite people in the world, General Michael Flynn, whom I absolutely love, and he's a dear friend. He's done such a fabulous job of exposing all this stuff. The Reawaken America tours, I wouldn't have the relationships that I have if it wasn't for General Flynn. And, he puts so much stuff out there. I swear if I want something to get out there, I just send it to General Flynn and I'm like, hey, can you retweet this or can you put it on Facebook? And he oh so kindly does. And he's just he knows his stuff. He's right there. He doesn't work for the government anymore, so he can just say and do whatever he wants. And I absolutely love it. But yes, it all begins with fear. And vaccines are dangerous. We're told over and over. You had mentioned before about how you spent years trying to figure out what was wrong with your son. And I only spent few years, which was a big reason why I wrote the what to do in my book, because I'm like, what do you do if you even think that your child could have autism? Because I was told, oh, that's normal. That's normal. How many times did you hear it? That's normal.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
My kid
All the
getting
time.
measles after his vaccine. Oh, that's just a rash. That's normal. Him regressing, by the way, according to my pediatrician, it's very normal that children regress.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's, it's a fight, and we have to keep just talking to people from a space of love. I'll talk to pregnant women. I'll talk to women with little newborn babies. Hey, here's my book. Would you read it if you knew that someday it might save your child's life?
Absolutely.
So,
We've got a 2-week-old granddaughter.
that.
We've got a 2-week-old granddaughter, and the first thing before she was even born, I was telling my son and his wife, I said, the Hep B vaccine, she doesn't need that. You're not drug addicts. Tell them no. You'll do it later if it's needed. Well, we got another hand in the audience here. Let's go ahead and take that before we get to the end of the show. Go ahead, Drex.
Young blood, you know the routine. Short and sweet, nice and neat. What do you got?
Well, I just wanted to say to Tracy that it seems to me that they only tell you things like, "Oh, it's normal. This is how it's going to be," because they don't want you to think outside the box. They want to box you in, and they don't want you going outside of that. And if you do, well, we all know what happens. You're called every name in the book. You're isolated. You're canceled. All those sorts of consequences, and it feeds the elites that that are ruling over us.
And I have one answer to that. God always wins.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Just ask the people that killed Charlie Kirk. God's winning in that, in spite of that despicable murder. It's amazing what's happening. So before we get to the end of the show, let's talk about your Autism Health Summit. When is it? What other conferences do you recommend parents take a look at if they can? People that are interested in helping.
So my summit, the Autism Health Summit, is April 24th and 26th next year. So I always try to do it in April because it's Autism Awareness Month. But, I caution right around the weekends that are holiday weekends and try to stay away from that, including Passover. And, there are some other great conferences as well. Children's Health Defense is having their conference in Austin. I think it's the 7th, 8th, and 9th of November. So that's coming up pretty soon. Because Lyme disease is right along the, right up there with autism, and a lot of these kids have Lyme. And is one of those underlying conditions that a lot of us don't realize we have. I didn't realize I had it for years. I was told fibromyalgia, nobody's going to tell you to go test for Lyme. It's not even recognized as a disease these days. So Lyme Bites conference, and it's Lyme, BYTES.com. is coming up in November as well. It's the weekend after CHD. Other conferences either I haven't been to, or I probably just choose not to support because they either follow a certain narrative or they don't. So I'm probably the only autism conference that just doesn't follow a narrative. I'm not bought out by big insurance. I had taken a donation from Big Pharma, and I chose out. And would it have saved my organization that's struggling? Absolutely. But I will not sell out at all. And that's not what I stand for. But, Autism Health is really, we are providing resources. We are 100% volunteer based. I am working day and night. It is a labor of love to get assistance. We're working on different, partnering with different companies on research projects for treatments and therapies for autism. So if you go to autismhealth.com, you can find out about the conference, or you can go to ahsconference.com. But and you can also get some resources on what are the best treatments and therapies. There's a blog on there. We're going to start a parent meeting once a month, and we do a webinar with a professional who speaks. So Dr. Richard Bartlett spoke last weekend. And then we've done one for stem cell therapy and then one for plasmalogens this far. So each month we do a free webinar. And all we do for a donation, and that's it.
Fantastic. We need more organizations like that that can't be bought. Do you think? I just have this one thing, because you Senator Kennedy, the folks at Children's Health Defense, probably a lot of people that are in his organization now, in the administration, I would imagine. Do you think we'll be successful at least mitigating the influence of things like Big Pharma on the systems that make decisions that have led us to this point where it's the parents led by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump that are having to create a bubble of truth? Do you think we're going to be successful, and what should we be looking for that we can support them in that effort? Any ideas?
Listen, we are fierce parents, and I believe we are already successful. The fact that it's out there and people are talking about it, I mean, how many years have we waited for this, Rob, as autism parents? nobody would talk about the elephant in the room. And now they're talking about several elephants in the room. And
That's right.
it's fabulous. So, you know what? Send love and prayers to Bobby. He's a strong, grounded individual, but he's very kind and he's very tired, I can tell. But man, he's a beast. And me and my husband sat down with him.
I'll tell you one little quick story. We had a worldview week